From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Claire Harvey. It's Wednesday, April 30, 2025. The trial of accused mushroom murderer Erin Patterson gets underway in Victoria today. Patterson will defend 3 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder relating to a 2023 lunch at her Leongatha home. Voters returned the Canadian Liberal Party to government on Tuesday, and PM Mark Carney vowed to stand up to Donald Trump.
We are over the shock of the American betrayal, but we should never forget the lessons. We will chart a new path forward, because this is Canada and we decide what happens here.
Inspector Amy Scott entered the Bondi Junction Westfield mass stabbing incident with the expectation she would die trying to take down a murderer. That's the evidence from the veteran New South Wales police officer at a coronial inquest into the deaths of 6 victims and assailant Joel Cauchi. Today, Amy Scott's untold story.
In my head, I'd resigned myself to the fact that I was probably going to die.
It's the story Inspector Amy Scott has never told in public, the moment she shot dead a mass murderer. The New South Wales Police Commander has been hailed as a heroine for the day in April 2024 when a Queensland man, 40-year-old Joel Cauchi, walked into a Westfield shopping mall and started stabbing people. Scott has rejected scores of requests for interviews and comments since that day. She's said nothing in public, and you get the feeling she'd never have spoken at all, if not for a coronial inquest where she, on Tuesday, gave evidence about her actions. Scott told the inquest she was driving through the area when she heard an alert on the scanner. We've used voice actors throughout this episode to bring you the words spoken in court. Amy Scott.
We're getting multiple calls, multiple stabbings, multiple locations at Bondi Westfield, and I knew right then it was very real.
1 minute and 25 seconds later, Scott was at the mall where shoppers rushed to tell her a man with a knife was on the rampage. She recalled them saying,
"He's in there with a knife, he's stabbing people, he's killing people, you've got to help us get in there." I considered it to be an active armed offender. I also knew I couldn't wait anymore for my colleagues to arrive and I just had to go in.
She radioed her colleagues.
I'm pretty sure I said on the radio, "Just so you know, they're active, I'm going in." I gave the location I went in at. My intention was to try and find the threat.
2 of the most famous civilians from that day were Frenchmen, Silas Despreaux and Damien Guerreau. Guerreau was famously captured on video wielding a bollard to shepherd Cauchi down an escalator to shield civilians on the floor above. He became known, of course, as Bollard Man. Scott recalled one of the men tapping her on the back and saying,
"You're on your own. We are coming with you." And I said, "That's great, but can you stay behind me the whole time?"
When she reached the upper floors of the mall, guided by shoppers towards the assailant, Scott saw Cauchi about 20 metres away. The Frenchman behind Scott was shouting, "Shoot him, shoot him." She shouted at Cauchi to stop. He started running away and she sped after him. Cauchi stopped again and Scott saw people hiding behind a pot plant.
I saw a lady and a pram, 2 ladies and a pram. One had run away, but the other had hidden behind a large pot plant about 15 metres on the other side of Joel. I mouthed at her to run.
Then Cauchi turned in the woman's direction.
I yelled out, "Mate," to get his attention back to me, and he just sprinted downhill at me with the knife out. He was going to kill me. It was very fast, but in my mind, it was extremely slow. I knew the first shot had to hit him, but that was because of a jolt in his body. But he continued to come towards me, and I also was simultaneously saying, "Stop, drop it."
She fired 2 more shots.
I had not been able to stop the threat with the first one.
Scott's 3rd bullet missed Cauchi and landed in the pot plant where the woman had been hiding. After she'd shot Cauchi, Scott leant over him, flicked the knife away, turned him into the recovery position and began CPR. She knew he was dead.
I want to acknowledge the courage and the bravery. Some of them have been unable to return, and they have my wholehearted support, love and care. I hope that the public understands that they were absolutely extraordinary. They saved lives on that day and they put themselves at risk.
Scott has been hailed for her courage, but in an emotional moment of testimony, she praised the young officers working under her in the Eastern Suburbs Police Local Area Command.
We want to think that police don't feel fear, don't feel the burden and pressure of what everyday humans do. I can assure you that they do. I can assure you on that day that they were the people running in. And whilst I was the person that faced Joel, those young officers ran in with the exact same intentions.
She said her police training taught her to run towards danger and that an officer has a 60 to 70% chance of survival with an armed offender if the officer's accompanied by another cop and wearing a stab-proof vest.
I was neither of those. I actually felt nauseous. In my head, I resigned myself to the fact that I was probably going to die.
At the beginning of her evidence, Scott made a short statement.
I offer my sincere condolences to the family and the friends of the victims. I cannot, and I don't even begin to imagine what every day since April 13, 2024 has been like for you all.
Some of the first responders who worked on that day have been too traumatised to return to work.
That day, as tragic as it was, it gave me faith in humanity, restored some faith in humanity and the goodness of people.
After the break, how Joel Cauchi became a killer. State Coroner Teresa O'Sullivan explained on day one of the inquest, Monday this week, the purpose of the hearing was to provide families and the community with answers about how the massacre occurred and how such events might be prevented in future. That means digging into what drove Joel Cauchi to stab 6 strangers to death. His victims were shoppers Dawn Singleton, Jade Young, Yishuan Cheng, Ashley Good and Pikria Dachia. Cauchi also killed a security guard, Faraz Tahir, who was on his first shift at Westfield Bondi Junction. Counsel assisting the inquest is Dr. Peggy Dwyer, SC. We've used a voice actor to bring you Dwyer's words.
Mr. Cauchi wounded 10 others before being fatally shot by New South Wales Police. Of those 10 people, 2 were men, and both of those men were very seriously injured.
Dwyer said Cauchi, who had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, was effectively without treatment or adequate supervision for nearly 5 years before his death. She said Cauchi's medication was reduced and then ceased in late 2019, but that very shortly after that, there were early warning signs that he was relapsing.
We know from the evidence in the brief that Mr. Cauchi had several interactions with Queensland police officers, including most notably in January 2023, when Queensland Police were called to Mr. Cauchi's family home following an incident where his father had confiscated a number of knives that were a similar style to that used by Mr. Cauchi on 13 April 2024. Mr. Cauchi's father was worried about him having those knives, and the court will explore whether that was an opportunity missed for intervention by police, which may have resulted in Mr. Cauchi being re-engaged with the mental health system at that time.
She said by 13 April 2024, Cauchi was
floridly psychotic.
Expert toxicology evidence suggests that Cauchi had been using cannabis or marijuana in the days preceding his death. She noted Cauchi had also been a marijuana user when he was first diagnosed with schizophrenia as a young teenager.
I expect the court will hear expert psychiatric evidence that use of cannabis would likely have exacerbated the psychotic symptoms that Mr. Cauchi was experiencing around 13 April. But conversely, expert evidence is also likely to shed light on the fact that the use of cannabis may be a symptom of schizophrenia or psychosis.
Dwyer said it was hard to discern a specific motive for Cauchi's actions, except that he was planning an attack. The notes on his phone showed active preparations for violence. On 25 January 2024, Cauchi wrote,
"Call knife sharpener and confirm it doesn't need sharpening for maul use.
On February 12,
Check out mauls and also where to run."
Dwyer said none of that explained why he wanted to kill strangers, but that he did have an obsession with death and murder. His browsing history showed bookmarked pages on serial killers and searches about mass stabbing incidents. On the day of the Bondi Junction massacre, he had searched for information concerning the two young men who massacred school children at Columbine High in Colorado in 1999. Cauchi had spent the night before the massacre sleeping either in or near the public toilets at Maroubra Beach before going to a storage facility to retrieve his bag containing a large knife.
What those records unequivocally show is a man who was seriously unwell, who was far from home and far from the watchful eye of his parents, who had previously been able to keep him linked in with mental health services over such a long period. From the time that he was a teenager to when he was about 36 years of age, his parents had been able to keep him linked in with services while he was living with them. But by 2024, Mr. Cauchi was 40 years old, homeless in Sydney, completely detached from the mental health system.
You can follow this ongoing inquest at theaustralian.com.au.